Camilla didn't inherit the crown. She hijacked the spotlight, and tonight we're pulling apart the power play that finally made Princess and say, enough, and put Catherine, not Camilla, at the center of the late Queen's legacy. If you're still watching, you clearly love this kind of content. So hit subscribe so you never miss the next one. When the cameras cut and the choreographed waves stop, a different monarchy takes over. One held together by ego, memory, and quiet threats. For months, a silent storm built behind palace doors. Princess and watched it gather, watched it creep from soft symbolism into hard power, and she made a decision: no more. This wasn't just protocol. This was personal. It was about her mother's legacy being repackaged for someone who hadn't earned it. Here's the truth most headlines won't touch. As Camilla's footprint expanded, private jewelry fittings, pointed speeches, careful requests to royal archivists, and kept score. Each modern touch felt less like continuity and more like a coronation by stealth. The breaking point? A push for a grand portrait in Queen Mary's diamond crown, a jewel that screams endurance, not convenience. Internally, it was sold as heritage, and saw it for what it was, a visual coup for decades, and has been the crown's iron spine. Loyal, relentless, discreet. But you don't outlast 7 decades of monarchy without learning when silence becomes betrayal. Aides noticed the shift first: her sharp eyes in briefings, her absences from casual gatherings, the late-night meetings behind closed doors with a single folder marked with the Queen's crest. She wasn't plotting scandal. She was auditing legacy, and had already clocked something else the public felt but couldn't name. As Camilla's shadow grew, Catherine's light dimmed. The woman who quietly embodies the late Queen's code, dignity over drama, service over self, was being pushed to the wings of her own future. And that, in Anne's world, is a red line. Then came the room. A small internal briefing, meant to rubber stamp appearances and ceremonial optics. Everyone expected routine. And stood, face unreadable, voice steel. Catherine carries the Queen's legacy, not Camilla. The sentence hit the table like a blade. The air left the room. Even Charles said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Camilla went pale. This wasn't press. This wasn't Twitter. This was the Queen's daughter drawing a sword inside the keep. From there, the palace machinery tried to smother the spark. Delay the portrait. Reword the memos. Share the spotlight. But optics cannot paper over essence, and Anne wasn't operating on optics. She was operating on orders, hers, because the story doesn't end in that room. It begins with the letter. Tucked in a private drawer at Balmoral, delivered to and quietly after the late Queen's passing. It wasn't a decree. It was heavier. A mother writing to the only daughter who knew the weight as she did. The line that froze and, should the day come, look to the one who carries it with dignity. Not the loudest. Not the nearest. The one who carries ITTO, and there was no riddle. The letter wasn't about titles. It was about character. The late Queen had measured the future as she had measured her reign, by conduct. And only one woman in that triangle had never asked for a crown, yet walked as if born to its burden. Catherine. Once you understand the letter, the next moves make sense. The palace can soften statements, and can move history. She confronted Charles directly. No courtiers. No buffers. The letter on the table between them. You know Mother would never have allowed this. Charles tried the peacemaker's path, shared legacy, softer symbols, don't divide the family from within. And didn't blink. No one crowned her the soul of this monarchy. It wasn't about Camilla's title. It was about the throne's center of gravity. The next morning, the calendar told the truth. A new ceremonial role, one historically reserved for the sovereign or their consort, announced without fanfare. The Global Peace Summit would be represented by the crown. Not by Camilla. By Catherine. It wasn't a promotion in name. It was a restoration in spirit. The statement didn't say sidelined. It didn't need to. The image did the talking. Catherine arrived with the quiet confidence that turns noise into backdrop. No victory lap. No pointed lines. Just a speech that distilled the late Queen's ethic into one sentence. Service is not inherited. It is lived. Room on its feet. Coverage across Europe and the Commonwealth. Polls shifting not by PR, but by recognition. You can crown a title. You cannot manufacture moral authority. Inside Clarence House, the center didn't hold. Camilla's circle frayed under the weight of the moment. Leaks. Frustrations. Memos that read like diary entries. I am the Queen. Why does she get the sympathy? Because sympathy is not assigned. It's earned. The more her camp pushed for ownership of the narrative, the more the public recoiled. Catherine's silence said more than any press office ever could. Then came the counterstroke that nearly lit the fuse on a palace war, a covert push for a solo coronation tour, a regalia-soaked swing through select Commonwealth stops designed to reassert queenship by pageant, not by principle. Protocol shredded. Optics over order. That was the plan. Until Anne heard it, she convened senior royals who had stayed on the sidelines, opened the letter, and read. Not gossip.
Not spin.
The late queen's own words. The room didn't argue. It listened. Two camps emerged that night. Those who stand on legacy, and those who cling to entitlement hoping proximity will trickle down as power. Catherine refused to be anybody's pawn. No interviews. No self-justifying statements. She went home to her children and let the country decide who looked like the future. Here's the part that matters. Monarchies don't survive on hashtags or heraldry. They survive on trust, hard-won, easily lost. You can commission a portrait, but you cannot paint credibility onto a crown. You can schedule a tour, but you cannot itinerary yourself into the nation's heart. That is why Anne moved. Not to humiliate, to correct, and correction doesn't require fireworks. It requires alignment. Catherine didn't seize anything. Anne returned it to her. The late queen's unwritten rule, duty first, reappeared in a single reshuffled line on a royal schedule and a single sentence at a world summit. That's how real power moves. Quietly, decisively, irrevocably. Will there be a counter? Of course. Camilla didn't get this far by folding. But every step she takes now will be judged against the standard and raised, and the letter that backs it. Dignity carried, not demanded. If she chooses pageant over principle, the public will see it. If she chooses unity over ego, the monarchy breathes easier. The choice is hers, and the clock is loud. So where does this land? With a sister who refused to let her mother's legacy be recast, a king caught between love and lineage, a consort learning that titles don't bend hearts, and a princess who never asked for the crown yet keeps proving she can carry it. In a palace built on ceremony, the most important ceremony just happened off stage. The passing of a standard. Remember the line that started it all. Look to the one who carries it with dignity. In the end, that's not a slogan. It's a filter. Put every royal move through it, and the truth stops hiding. Your turn. Does a crown belong to the loudest claimant or the quietest constant?